Hi, Open Noters! Welcome to the Fort Collins Symphony's Open Notes podcast, where we enrich lives through classical music. I'm Norman Manzales, the Marketing and Community Engagement Director, and with me is my co-host, Alyssa.
Hi, I'm Alyssa Rago, the Education and Patron Development Director. In this podcast, we'll look behind the scenes of the professional music world and explore why music is for everyone.
Today we're here with a very special guest.
He's the featured guest artist for our first signature concert on October 4th at 7:30 p.m., where you'll hear him perform Mozart's Horn Concerto No. 4. He also happens to be the principal horn of the Fort Collins and Cheyenne Symphonies, as well as professor of horn at Regis University. He's an incredibly talented performer along the Front Range. Please, let's welcome Ben Shafer.
Hey guys, thanks so much for having me today. I'm really excited to have some good conversations with you.
To start off, how long have you been playing horn, Ben, and what first inspired you to pursue it professionally?
Yeah, absolutely. So I started horn back in sixth grade. Oh man, I think that was like 17 years ago at this point, making me feel old. I've been playing professionally since 2018 when I got my first job with the Cheyenne Symphony as principal horn there. And I've been playing with the Fort Collins Symphony professionally since 2021 as principal horn. When I was thinking about like all the careers in the world, one of the foundations on like how I decided was the Japanese concept of ikigai. Are you guys familiar with that?
Yes.
Yeah, so
I am.
It's kind of like the convergence of like what you're good at, what the world needs, and what you can be paid for, and like what you love. And I think that's kind of like a tenet of what I believe is really important. And so I was thinking about different ideas back in high school about like going into architecture or becoming a therapist. And then even in college, like I was considering becoming a conductor instead of a horn player.
Wow.
Yeah, I'm glad I chose horn. Somehow less stressful, I think. We can talk to Wes about that.
Wes Kenny, our music director, of course, for everyone listening.
But I think playing horn is the thing that like opened the most doors for me and something that I've always been happy with. And it's something I've been passionately pursuing ever since.
Wonderful. Of all the places to experience and perform music, why Colorado and why Fort Collins?
Mm-hmm. So I grew up in North Carolina, but I came out to Colorado for grad school. And so I studied at CU Boulder under Mike Thornton, and he was one of the biggest reasons why I came out here. He's a fantastic teacher, a fantastic horn player and pedagogue, and he's developed a really competitive horn studio up here. Plus the scenery is not bad at all. Fort Collins in particular, I didn't really know what the music scene was going to be like out here. I didn't know what like my future was going to hold when I moved out here. I kind of just moved out here not knowing anybody and decided to see where it would take me. And it seems like opportunities opened up that I was able to come in. And I'm really grateful to be out here in Fort Collins. I live in Boulder, but I come up to Fort Collins pretty often and teach at a lot of like the high schools around here as well. But I think being in Colorado, the music scene out here is really unique. There's a lot of regional orchestras that provide like truly high quality music that I feel like hit above their pay grade. And I think like the Fort Collins Symphony in particular is one of the top regional orchestras. And I'm just really grateful that I get to come up here and play with some great people, and especially grateful that I get to perform a concerto at the beginning of the season. That's something that I might not be able to do if I was in a bigger city like like New York Philharmonic or something. Like they usually pick soloists, not musicians from the orchestra to perform. So it's really cool.
Yeah, wonderful.
I was going to say we're really happy that you're with us, Ben. So
very much so. Yeah,
a really great colleague.
Mm-hmm. And it is one of our favorite things about the Fort Collins Symphony that we do get to have such high caliber musicians to choose from for solos. You know, I know that it's one of the sort of important underlying motivations of the symphonies to really highlight our local musicians. So, and speaking of you performing your solo, you'll be performing Mozart's Horn Concerto No. 4 on Friday, October 4 at the Lincoln Center, and we're very, very excited to hear you play. The horn is such a beautiful instrument with rich colors and timbre, and I have to secretly confess, well, it won't be a secret after I confess it, I guess. Sometimes I wish that instead of playing the viola, I had chosen the horn.
Alyssa.
But
No, traitor.
I also love the viola. I have no regrets, but the horn, you just get so many gorgeous melodies. And I mean, yeah, there's really never a time that the horn plays that it's not like just epic and beautiful. So could you tell us a little bit about Mozart's connection to the horn and what made his horn concerto so special?
Yeah, absolutely. I completely agree with you that the horn is just one of the most beautiful instruments, and it's so much fun to play every day. So Mozart in particular was not a horn player, but one of his childhood friends, Joseph Leutgeb, I'm pretty sure I mispronounced that, but I don't speak German, so forgive me if you speak German.
I'll forgive you this time.
Thank you very much. So they were childhood friends, like family friends. And so Mozart decided to write concertos for him. And one of my favorite facts about these concertos is that in the original manuscripts, Mozart actually wrote little notes to Leutgeb that were kind of like poking fun at him. And so like one of them was like, he said something along the lines of like, at least one note in tune, please. And like during longer phrases, he was like, are you running out of breath yet? Or something like that. It's little silly things like that like just show the friendship that he and Leutgeb have.
Well, and for those who maybe aren't familiar with Mozart's personality, that's very much in line with like, he's known for writing sort of raunchy, rude, like potty humor letters to all kinds of people, whether they were rich or not. So yeah, that's very much in keeping with his personality.
Yeah, these pieces were originally written for natural horn as well. For those of you who don't know, the horns that we play on today are typically double horns, which have 12 different keys that we can play in. The natural horns only had one key that you could play in. And so they would have to switch, they call them crooks, to switch keys. But Mozart wrote this for natural horn, and that really limits the amount of notes that the horn player can actually play. So the traditional technique that they used was actually like stopping the note inside the bell, using their right hand to kind of close the sound off to change the pitch. And that also really affected the sound. And so most of the time prior to Mozart, I think there's only one or two people that wrote concertos for horns. It wasn't like a featured instrument for the orchestra. It was more of just like you play roots and fifths in the chords. So I think that Mozart really loved the challenge of writing for horn like that because you're still really limited to the amount of notes that you could write for. And I think that's evidence by the fact that he wrote 4 concertos for horn and a couple other fragments of pieces for solo horn, whereas all the other wind instruments that he wrote concerto for, I think there's only one for each of them. So I think that like even today, even though they were written in the 18th century, like these horn concertos really hold up amongst like all of the repertoire for solo horn, and they're still really commonly performed.
It's really funny that you mentioned that because I was thinking about the flute concerto, and I guess technically we have 2 flute concerti, but it's funny because we have, the standard G major flute concerto, but then our second flute concerto is actually in D major, but it's essentially the same as the oboe concerto, except raised up a whole step.
Right. And I think there's a flute and harp concerto as well, right?
Yes. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, that's a different realm because you've got 2 soloists. But I mean, I think to your point and what you've just said, I think, there's just evidence of how Mozart has just kind of laid the foundation of, what we would consider the standard horn repertoire because of featuring it so much. And you had also mentioned about the crooks and how that really changed the ability to, move along the instrument, which I think is really cool. So, yeah,
absolutely.
That's awesome.
And yeah, I think like you were saying, Mozart really did kind of become the first composer to write regularly for horn as a solo instrument, and even in his orchestral pieces. He started using horn in a more unique way than a lot of other composers at the time. And yeah, I think that's why like his music, even though almost nobody plays or specializes in natural horn, these horn concertos are still performed on modern instruments because like he set the bar so high at the time that like even today, like this is some of the most standard repertoire for the horn.
Very cool. So what made you pick the 4th concerto out of the others to play with us at the Fort Collins Symphony? Do you have a favorite section in the piece?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So it's interesting. Over the years, as you're studying horn, as any student is studying horn, they're going to be playing all of these concertos from the time that they're like starting off in high school or middle school, maybe college, for the first time. But so in my career, I've played all of the horn concertos, not with an orchestra before, but I've been working on these for years, decades even at this point. And so I think that one of the reasons why I chose the fourth horn concerto was because I think the melodies in this one speak to me more than maybe some of the other melodies. I think all of the movements have their own melody and unique feel. Like the first movement is really lovely and has moments of like heroism and virtuosity, but there's also like a dark middle section in that, which really speaks to me. The second movement is really like flowing, warm, and peaceful. And then the last movement is my favorite because it's just pure fun. It takes like the hunting horn kind of tradition of what you would expect in like Germany and Austria, and adds just so much fun and humor to it. There's actually this British comedy duo called Flanders and Swan. I think they were from like the 70s or 80s, maybe 60s even. But they added words to the third movement of the fourth horn concerto. And every time I hear them do that, it just brings a smile to my face. And like the melody gets stuck in my head. And I'm just really excited to perform like the whole concerto, but the third movement in particular, because it's just as fun to play as it is to listen to.
Do you know what those words are? I'm curious now.
Oh man, I don't think anyone wants to hear me sing, but it's along the lines of I once had a whim and I had to obey it to buy an old horn from a secondhand shop, and it talks about like his progression to losing his horn, and then not being able to find it because his neighbor stole it, and so he ended up buying a tuba instead. It's just a really silly song.
That's amazing. Well, I mean, you've spoken a little bit about, why you enjoy it, particularly the third movement. But what are some of the biggest challenges in the concerto for you as a performer?
Yeah, that's a really good question as well. So I kind of mentioned earlier how I've been playing this piece on and off for years, and I've played it in a lot of different contexts. The first one being a student, just like learning the notes and the rhythms. The next one for like auditions. This is one of the most commonly asked pieces for any like orchestral audition. In fact, I think even in my profession or in my audition for principal horn at the Fort Collins Symphony, I had to play this piece. But to perform it with an orchestra, it kind of takes on a whole new meaning. So I'm going to be memorizing this piece and playing it without music, and so that's a pretty big challenge right there. But also, I think one of the bigger challenges is there have been so many great horn players throughout history that have played this piece before and have great recordings of this piece. And so one of the struggles that I'm having is to have my own voice be heard while still adhering to all of the traditions that Mozart's music has. And I think that's probably one of the bigger challenges is as a professional, like how can I make it a very special performance and still make it unique, but also traditional and find that perfect balance in between.
Yeah, I appreciate you bringing up like an artistic challenge with that. How do you like approach that, when you're practicing?
Totally. So one of the things that I think this piece lends itself to is there are a couple opportunities for cadenzas, which for those of you who don't know, cadenza is basically a portion where the orchestra drops out and it's just the horn or just the soloist to perform kind of like a virtuosic little interlude before the music comes back. And so that's one of the biggest opportunities for like my own voice to be heard. And that's actually something I've been struggling a lot with too, is like I've listened to probably dozens of recordings at this point, and they all have wonderful cadenzas. And I'm trying to figure out how I can do something that's like unique to me, something that plays to my strengths, but also like taking like the traditional form of a cadenza and adding that. And so what I've actually been doing the past couple of weeks is every time that I get to that part, I just improvise something. Like I don't have an actual piece written down yet. Maybe I'll get to that point. Maybe I improvise the night of, but we'll see. So I think it's just going to be something fun to make that unique. But in the context of the melodies and the normal concerto part of it as well, something that I've been doing is playing along with a lot of different recordings as well, and just seeing what their different tempos are, which ones I like. There are a couple opportunities for like how do I want to put this? Adding like a little like melisma here or there, or a little ornamentation here or there, and seeing what I think works really well. And yeah, at the end of the day, I think it's going to be a really good performance, and I'm excited to do it.
I just wanted to ask you a question, Ben, especially when you were talking about the cadenza
Sure.
aspect and the way you've been practicing. Have there been any comical instances where like all of a sudden like you get to the cadenza and you're maybe starting to play like the main theme and all of a sudden it starts sounding a little jazzy or really weird?
Absolutely. Definitely most of the cadenzas that I've tried to play so far have gotten into some keys that maybe we're not going to explore in the night of. But I think that's part of the journey of it, is trying to figure out like what roadmap I want to take for the cadenza and then having that foundation. But yeah, there have definitely been some times where I'm like, I have no idea what's about to happen.
The joy of music.
The joys of live music.
So it sounds like, that, thinking about preparation for Mozart, but switching gears a little bit, last year you gave the U.S. premiere of Ruth Gibbs' Horn Concerto with the Cheyenne Symphony, which, what an incredible opportunity for that. Could you tell us what that experience was like?
Absolutely, yeah. So I think that performance is one of the most memorable moments of my career so far. The Ruth Gibbs Concerto itself is just an incredible piece. And it was written a lot more recently than the Mozart Concerto was. And so there were a lot more difficult technical demands than the Mozart has. Not to say the Mozart's easy, but this one is insane. It's truly one of the most difficult pieces I think I've ever had to play in my life. It was also like the first time I've performed a concerto in front of an orchestra, like professionally. And so there were a lot of nerves involved with that. And I said it was very memorable, but I think like the before I went on and the after I got off were the memorable parts, because I think it's so in the flow state in the moment that it was, I barely remember playing any of it. But overall, it was just an amazing opportunity to bring like the music of maybe a lesser known composer and a lesser known concerto to more of a wide stream audience, especially in America. It was performed in England a couple times, but and since I've performed it, actually, I know of at least 3 other performances of that concerto in the United States, that either have happened or are happening this season. And so it's just really great to see her music get to shine a little bit. And I mean, I felt like so in love with it when I was working through it. And I'm just glad that more people get the opportunity to both play it and to hear it live. It's truly incredible.
That's awesome. So Ben, when you're learning a premiere or something that is brand new, how does your approach differ compared to preparing a piece like Mozart that you've heard many times before?
Sure. Yeah. So something I mentioned earlier about the Mozart was that I was like listening to and playing along with recordings a lot, but there were, as far as I know, only 2 recordings of the Ruth Gibbs Horn Concerto ever done. So I didn't have the opportunity to do that as much. And like with the Mozart, there's a lot of tradition behind that. Whereas the Gibbs, there was a lot of like more freedom to kind of express like the variations of tempo or whatever. And so I did a lot of experimentation on my own. I felt like I was able to play around with the tempos and the musical ideas more than I do with the Mozart. That being said, the Mozart has a very specific musical style and like performance practice history that I've like studied a lot, and I have to stay within that kind of box for this kind of performance while still finding my own voice. And I think both of those are challenges that they're different challenges that have allowed me to grow a lot as a musician. Both of them have. So
Very cool. Beyond your performances, you've done some really inspiring projects that connect music with social issues, like your recital Solely, which raised funds for the American Civil Liberties Union, and also your recital A Breath of Fresh Air, which explored air quality, mindfulness, and art. What motivates or inspires you to use music as a tool for social change?
Thank you for asking that. Yeah. So I think anyone that is in the public eye has kind of a responsibility to use that publicity as a way to inspire people to be better at something. Like in my undergrad, that was kind of drilled into me by one of my conductors, Jonathan Govius. using like music for social change. And so each year when I was in undergrad, we put on like programs that connected people with questions to kind of think about a little bit deeper or more or in a different way in order to be a small catalyst for change. And so like when I'm putting on recitals like that, that's something that I'm really like grateful that I have the opportunity to like continue that tradition of. Hopefully get like people to think about more complex issues through a musical or artistic lens. And doing these projects not only helps others, but I also think that I've become more of like an empathetic, socially active, analytical person because of that.
Are there particular causes or issues you're especially passionate about raising awareness for through your music that you haven't already explored?
Sure. I think both of the ones that I've done are two very different ideas. One raised money for the American Civil Liberties Union after like the George Floyd protests and everything, and the Breath of Fresh Air kind of talked about air quality. And so I premiered a piece by Colorado composer Jordan Holloway, exploring kind of like forest fires, as that's something that we're really really prevalent with these days, and mindfulness and art and the intersection of all of that. And let's see, I think for now, I think overall, I just want to inspire people to be kinder, more empathetic, and find connection with each other through music. And I mean, I think there's so many things in our world these days that like strive to drive wedges between genuine human connections. And if music can be a way, like even a small way that brings people closer, that's a very good thing. I think anyone who's seen an orchestra live, you'll be able to see how great of a metaphor for society it can be. Like everybody, every instrument has their own parts, every person within that has their own role. And they have to learn to play it really well. And being the best at your part, as well as like collaborating by listening to other people and being inspired by other people, you create something that's greater than the sum of its parts and something that's really beautiful for everyone to enjoy. And I think going to see a symphony live is something that really can be inspiring in that regard. And I sincerely hope it's a great reminder of like the beauty in the world.
I love that, Ben. Like, I think you just, and your response to that question really says a lot about who you are, just from me knowing you in the orchestra. And yeah, I really love that. That's amazing.
Thank you. I appreciate that. It's something I care a lot about, you know?
Yeah, absolutely.
Changing gears a little bit, we talked recently with your FCS horn colleague Io about the challenges of playing French horn. From your perspective, what would you say are some of the biggest challenges of the instrument?
Absolutely. So a lot of people say that the French horn is the hardest instrument, which, Alyssa, I don't know why you want to hate yourself like that by switching.
Well, because the viola is actually the hardest instrument.
Norma, do you think viola is the hardest instrument?
I'm not getting into this. I'm staying out.
I agree with that to some degree, but I also think that the horn is a very simple thing that we do. It's you blow air into a tube and push down the right buttons, right? But obviously that's a gross oversimplification. Blowing the right speed of air into the horn at the right time, pushing down the buttons at the right time, like it's not as easy as it sounds. But I think the thing that makes the horn really difficult to play is the fact that the higher you play, the closer together the notes become. So it's not like a linear thing, it's an exponential thing. And so most brass instruments play like in the lower range of their instrument for the most part. Whereas horn, we're playing in the upper range, especially playing principal horn. That's something that like I'm playing in the upper range of the instrument most of the time. And so the difference between playing a C and a D is not changing your fingers, it's changing your lips. I think you can almost think of it as like the difference between bikes. So if you have like a 1-speed bike, it's pretty easy to go along at almost any speed. When you get like more gears and stuff, like a 7-gear bike or something, you have more options, but you also have to worry about like when to use what gear. Horn is kind of like a 24-speed bike. Except instead of using your legs to pedal, you have to use just your lip muscles and your air. It's pretty tough, not gonna lie.
Well, if the fact that I can't even ride a 5-speed bike is any indicator, I think I would be terrible at the horn.
It's not easy.
But with that being said, Ben, what keeps you inspired to continue playing the horn, and what do you love most about the instrument?
Sure, yeah. So as Alyssa mentioned earlier about Mozart's love for the horn, I think one of the things that has gotten me is the beautiful sound and the beautiful like horn writing that composers have been able to do. Recently, I've been really inspired by like movie soundtracks. Not recently, that's been my entire career. I think that's one of my favorite things to do. And How to Train Your Dragon, especially, just I did that with the Cheyenne Symphony last year, like with the movie playing, and it was just such an incredible experience to be able to play the music, like some of the most beautiful soaring horn lines with an amazing horn section. It's just there's no feeling like it. So that's one of the things that inspires me. I think another thing that inspires me is knowing, this might sound a little weird, but knowing that I would never be perfect at it. You know, I think like no matter how old I get, no matter how many hours I put into the horn, there is always going to be more stuff to get better at. Like there's more stuff to learn. Like I can figure out ways to make my playing more efficient or more beautiful, or a piece of music that I played a couple of years ago, I can revisit it again and polish it even deeper than I have because I've become a better horn player myself. I think like one of my teachers once described that like musicians are kind of like or the process of becoming a great musician is the similar process of like how ancient Greeks like carved sculptures. So you start with like a big block of marble, and then day by day you just chip a little bit off at a time that's not serving you, and then whatever is left is going to be a beautiful piece of art. And I think that's a really beautiful metaphor because the art is inside of us, and I work every day to find that art to be even more true and to be more beautiful. And I think that's a big internal motivator as well.
Love that.
Yeah, that's so great, Ben. Wow, you're just so poetic in terms of your responses. It's really lovely.
You guys are asking good questions, so really all ears.
Before we wrap up and everything, we have a little surprise for you.
Uh-oh.
We have a few rapid fire questions for you. So just say the first thing that comes to mind, okay?
Okay.
Are you ready?
I hope so.
Okay. Favorite piece to play on horn?
Ooh, Glear Horn Concerto.
Ooh. Okay, if you weren't a musician, what would you be doing?
Ooh. Probably therapy, honestly. I think that's something that I would love to do a little bit more of too.
Very nice.
Best snack during rehearsal break?
So, okay, as a horn player, we're not supposed to eat a lot of snacks because it all gets into the horn. But, ooh, I'm going to say like cheese and crackers.
Okay. You and Io are like-minded on that.
We have a lot in common.
Favorite brass joke?
Ooh, what's how many trumpet players does it take to screw in a light bulb?
How many?
Hang on, now I have to remember. Oh yeah, just one, because they just hold the light bulb up and then the world revolves around them.
That's a good one. For our listeners out there who are unaware of instrument jokes, they can be brutal, but we all love each other.
Very true.
Just wait till we have a violist guest on this podcast. Get the really mean jokes. Ben, thank you for the rapid fire answers, and thank you so much for joining us today. It's been wonderful to get a deeper look into your artistry and your upcoming performance.
We're really looking forward to hearing you perform Mozart's Fourth Horn Concerto at our first signature concert of the season.
Thank you so much for having me. It's been great talking to you guys, and I'm really excited to not just play the Mozart Concerto, but also the rest of the program is going to be no slouch as well. We're doing the Sibelius Symphony No. 1, which also has some really great horn lines and probably some other good instrument stuff too. But we all know it's about the horn.
And also Jesse Montgomery's Passages, which I was looking at the other night, and I'm just like, okay, I have some counting and practicing to do as well.
Always something else to work on. So that concert will be on October 4th at 7:30 p.m. You can head to our new website at fcsymphony.org for more information and tickets to Ben's performance.
We'll see you at the Symphony. Thanks for tuning in to the Open Notes podcast. We appreciate your support for the arts. We'd love to know what you want to know, so send your questions and suggestions to podcast@fcsymphony.org.
For more information on the Fort Collins Symphony, visit our website at fcsymphony.org. We can't wait to hear from you. Until next time.
Bye.